इतिहास को देखें तो कई ऐसी चीजें हुई हैं जहाँ पर लोगों ने कहा है कि ये भगवान है, आप मनुष्य का दर्जा कैसे दे रहे हैं? सो आई थिंक इफ यू आस्क मी, देयर इज अ ट्रेमेंडस लेवल ऑफ करेज which has been shown by today's authors. In fact, what we are seeing is people not following the tide but actually coming up with their own ideas. When I wrote the first book, The Roosevelt Line, no one had written something in the realm of history and mythology together and tried to give it a fictional context. When Amish came out with Immortals of Miluva, I know for a fact that at that time no publisher was willing to touch that manuscript. I have received countless number of rejections since the director is sitting here. There is a famous quote of Samuel Johnson, who once wrote to an aspiring writer, and he said, your manuscript is both good and original, but the part that's good isn't original and the part that's original isn't good. When we tried to come up with original stuff, we were told exactly the same thing. कि नहीं ये तो नहीं चल सकता है, लोगों को क्या इंटरेस्ट है, या तो रोमांस हो, या it should be a work of non-fiction, or it should be an epic or a saga of a family, or otherwise it should be an out-and-out thriller. And if it's a thriller, then you as an Indian author have no place to be writing it, because Western authors are doing such a good job. So according to me, it has taken a tremendous level of courage. इसमें हम लोग ने थोड़ी बहुत हिम्मत जरूर दिखाई है by taking such stories and bringing them. अब ये जरूर चीज है कि वो कहते हैं ना कि मैं अकेले ही चला था मंजिल की तरफ और कारवां बन गया, लोग जुड़ते गए और कारवां बन गया. So it is a little bit like that कि अब पूरा कारवां बन गया है. So now you can have a situation where a lot of stories will emerge, जहाँ पर थोड़ी ओरिजिनलिटी जो है शायद क्वेश्चन हो जाए. जब चेतन भगत ने कैंपस रोमांसेस शुरू किए तो कौन सोच सकता था कैंपस रोमांसेस भी टेक ऑफ, बट वो हम लोगों के वो देश में ये हैबिट है, वो थोड़ी हर्ड मेंटालिटी हो जाती है. अभी माइथोलॉजी के साथ वो ही हो रहा है कि कई ऐसी स्टोरीज निकल रही हैं जहाँ पर आई फील आइदर द रिसर्च इज नॉट गुड इनफ और द थिंकिंग इज नॉट गुड इनफ और द स्टोरी लाइन इज नॉट गुड इनफ. बट इट्स ओके, बिकॉज जितने भी स्टोरीज आएंगे उनमें से इवेंचुअली जो गुड वंस हैं वो इवेंचुअली सक्सीड करेंगे. What was his background prior to Thunder God? But today, because Thunder God has taken an acceptance, therefore you're seeing it move up. So gradually that distinction will come. So that is at least my point of view. So I'll leave it now to Thunder God.
Yeah, I think people have created a ground for us to be a lot more adventurous. Like I have a protagonist who's very fond of taking heads and has a problem with substance abuse. And he's a god, so I would never have been able to write a story like this if the readers aren't there, who aren't open-minded and open to such. I will use the word distortions. I mean that's what I've been told I've done to mythology.
Sir, like to step in here and act sort of like the devil's DJ. So, what do you think? Are you really trying to? Do you ever believe that whatever you're writing, is it watering down historical fact/fiction or mythology in any way? Even though all authors these days research a lot about their books, do you ever believe that maybe perhaps I'm doing wrong, that there is that moral question that comes in and I'd like to tell more but I can't because of the boundaries that the publisher or the audience itself is placing upon you?
Actually, I'm glad to say that I haven't really delved too much into that. I've just focused on my story and telling it the way I want to tell it. I think I've been given that freedom in the environment that we are in today. So I'm thankful. I'm thankful to the readers as well as my publishers for that. There was never a question as to that wasn't raised. Yeah, but I think Ashwin, would you like to add?
No, I think the boundaries are self-imposed. अगर आप बाउंड्री की बात करें, then I think it is a self-imposed boundary, where you as an author begin to start feeling that no, I need to be within this territory. That ये मेरा इलाका है. This is now what my audience wants. I think that is when the danger zone comes in. I think you need to continuously, as an author, never be challenging yourself. When I started out as a writer, I didn't know the first thing about writing. I hadn't written anything longer than about 700, 800 words before I started writing my first book. And the most appropriate line that comes to my mind is Somerset Maugham, who said that there are 3 rules for writing a novel. No one knows what they are. And that's precisely what my situation was. I didn't know the first thing that I'm supposed to do in order to write that novel. And I think that was my biggest advantage, Piyush. It was my biggest advantage not knowing what I had to do, because I was free to experiment with lots of ideas. I sometimes wish I could go back. It's almost like losing your virginity. I wish you could go back to the time when you had it.
I think a lot of the audience might not understand.
I have a question about that. You were writing a trilogy.
Virginity?
Obviously, you're writing a trilogy, so you do research for 3 books. Whereas you've written 3 books about 3 completely different things. So how easy or difficult is it for both of you? Because you do research at once, whereas you have to do research 3 times separately. And that too, Rosable Line.
That's the reason I should get paid more than him.
So that's a fear of publishing. So I'm just asking you, how easy or difficult is it to write trilogy versus a standalone book? Again, each book is a plot in mythology or fiction, so I'd like you to understand.
It is a difficult thing, so you start with
My problem is that I get bored very quickly. So there are, my publisher in fact has come to me several times and said that, listen, why can't you write books which are either in a 2-part series or a 3-part series? And my problem is the approach in my life is ki raat gayi baat gayi. In fact, even when I've written a story, I normally will end up writing the manuscript. I will end up doing a quick read along with my editor, but I will not get into the details of proofreading or a second revision or a third revision. That's where the editor comes in and I say, hey, listen, you have to handle it entirely, because I'm bored by then of my own story. I don't want to revisit it. There are a lot of authors who actually go back and read their stories once it is published. Once the physical book is in the market, they actually sit down and read it. I've never done that. So for me to actually sit down and again go back to that same story is very, very boring and very, very monotonous. Moreover, I have ideas in my head that can probably, even if I was to live to the age of 250, I will still have ideas which I will not run out of. I have story ideas already, which can keep me occupied for another couple of 100 years. And unfortunately, I won't live that long. So the point is that then, at least as a writer, my view is that, okay, then I'd rather live with a new story every year, rather than have to live with that same story over 3 years or 4 years. So in that sense, I genuinely believe that the stuff that people like Rajiv do is actually a little more difficult, because it implies being faithful to your wife all the time.
Now, I had no idea what I was getting into initially, when I started, because I initially only started with one story. So when I was told that it's going to be a trilogy now, and the biggest challenge was, where do I end my first story and where do I start the second one? So I think a lot of my time went with that. Otherwise, so far it's all good. I was just happy to be writing, so I didn't really think about analyze it too much. It's only now when I figured I had to end this story here and now start my second book. That's when I really thought about that it's a trilogy and that it's I don't see the difference.
Still,